But motion capture actually really originated or kind of came to the fore with biomechanics and gait. This is kind of debatable. Some people attribute camera capture. There's the famous horse running along being photographed and then being reproduced as some of the first motion capture. But as we understand it, motion capture in being applied in a scientific method originated in biomechanics, and then this idea that you can accurately capture someone's motion, then apply it elsewhere, then naturally went into animation and film production, and it's now being used in lots of different industries, including robotics, engineering, and whilst people are able to then capture data, they can then apply it to lots of different disciplines. So analyzing people, giving people visual feedback in virtual reality to understand how people respond to things, understanding how people might pick up a box so you can apply health and safety principles. And then as this has developed, people have then been able to pair more and more things together, more and more people to be tracked, to be then used in different environments, so you can then start interacting with people. So typically what you need for a motion capture session is a kind of like a space, somewhere to operate within, and that will help determine what capture system you'll utilize. And then you need to somehow know how you're capturing that body motion, so we term that as calibration. So there's, if you're using an optical tracking system, you'll have a camera system like shown on the slide here, which is on the perimeter. You'll put someone in a suit, you'll ask them to do a calibrated pose, and you'll relate their movement to an origin point, and that could be somewhere in the center of the room, or in the case of other types of tracking technologies, it will be in relation to how the body moves. So you need a space to do motion capture, you need to calibrate your participants or your space, you need to attribute it to an object if it's a prop, or to a skeleton if it's a person. And then you need to take that data somewhere, and typically it's a game engine or a ergonomic or biomechanics analysis tool. So I'll just run over very briefly the different types of tracking technologies, and a lot of these will be familiar to people. And I mentioned Gollum before, that is typically using an outside-in tracking system. So perimeter cameras, you put somebody in a suit, you apply markers on that suit and define positions. And when that body moves, it drives a kind of skeletal representation of a person. And those systems kind of start, really from a single two cameras, trying to track an object which might be used in simulation, up to, depending on the size of your space, hundreds of thousands or even millions of pounds. New technology which is coming along, which is really quite interesting, is vision-based machine learning, artificial intelligence type tracking systems. They use cameras, again, outside in, to derive a skeletal movement based on subtraction in an environment. So you set up your perimeter cameras, you calibrate your space, so you take pictures of everything, and when a body comes into that space and is different from where you took pictures from, you can then derive skeletal information. Inertial suit systems, and these have been very popular in COVID times, because it means you can have a tracking system out of a box in a way. So this is a derived positional system. So you put on a suit and you have certain positional information for parts of the body, and it means you can track someone on stage, or on a football pitch, or a variety of environments. And based on how the sensors move in relation to each other is how you derive positional information for tracking. And then facial capture tools, which are becoming more and more popular. A lot of people will be familiar with these things in Snapchat in very basic format, but there's a big push in the industry to try and replicate humans as accurately as possible. So a term for that's often coined as digital twin. And similar to fingers, the face is probably the most difficult thing to replicate accurately. And so people use camera systems, so depth sensing cameras from iPhones and other kind of smartphones, newer smartphones, to cameras based on rigs which have dots on the actors' faces, so you can derive minute motion in people's change of expression. And then quite often overlooked, but lots of simulated technology. Simulators use magnetic tracking technology to be able to derive where instrumentation is within virtualized environments. So this one simulates the movement of a heart, and is used to train prospective surgeons on how to understand how hearts beat. So tracking is kind of almost everywhere. Hybrid systems, these are using single cameras on objects which see fiducial markers, and then can derive position by where the camera is in relation to those markers. And that's being used a lot in virtual production systems, which you may be familiar with, things like Mandalorian, which uses virtual production stage, and a lot of the tracking cameras are either optical outside in, or there's a company called Moses who use this kind of fiducial tracking system to understand where the camera is in relation to the markers. So I think I've probably elapsed my time there, I think, and I'll hand over to Alex. I hope that was an okay introduction.
It was absolutely excellent. Thank you very much. So handing over to Alex as Alex. Actually, I think we're supposed to go into Daniel next. So yeah, okay, not to Alex. Yes, Daniel, please.
Thank you, Alan. That's really such a really wonderful introduction, very informative. Hello, everybody. I'm Daniel Caulfield-Strickland, and I work as knowledge exchange lead within the School of Media and Communications at the London College of Fashion. At the school, we're made up of 3 program areas. So we're media, communications, and performance, and we explore the body as a creative site across borders and disciplines. And I also work as a lecturer and practitioner within communication design for fashion. And I'm just going to take you through a certain number of projects that kind of relate to the theme, and ways that I've kind of been working with digital capture, digital representation, and motion capture. It all kind of started back when I did my MA back in 2012 in fashion curation. And with this MA, I was exploring really kind of questioning fashion curation. How do you put the body or representation of the body into the exhibition space without its canvas, without the moving, breathing, living, emotional, tactile, sensorial body? So I was really kind of doing a lot of research around this and looking at 2 specific areas, one being performance and one being digital technology. And this mood board behind me was kind of the mood board I put together before I started my research, to really try and understand myself, what I was exploring, and different kind of ways I was imagining or reimagining the exhibition space. This kind of culminated in my graduate piece, an exhibition that I curated, which took an archival piece of clothing from an archive, and using different digital means tried to kind of communicate it in different ways. So one piece was a 3-channel film installation that I directed, which was very simple. It was very much about the relationship between the body and the clothes, slow motion capture, light and sound, and it was kind of this floor to ceiling immersive environment to really kind of immerse you in the space. Another thing that we did was we captured using our iPhones. Back then, I think it was iPhone 3 or 4, or on 12 as of yesterday, and using an app called 123D Catch, which is a photogrammetry capture system where you take lots of photographs around an object and stitch it together. So here you can obviously see it's quite a lo-fi resolution, but you know, back in 2012 it was quite an interesting thing to present. Also presenting it, you know, captured from our mobile phones, and interesting in the context of conservation within museums. Following my MA, I did some research in America and Philadelphia at Drexel University, working with Professor Kathy Martin, who had been exploring this idea of digital representation, capture, and motion capture for quite some time. She has a project called the Drexel Digital Museum Project, working with a historic costume collection at Drexel and digitizing the garments from 1930s, putting them onto digital bodies representative of those from the 1930s, and applying motion capture technology. So, you know, really working with digital media artists to sculpt and create bodies that were representative, but also choreographing movement that was representative of movement at the time. So working with a choreographer, and this person wearing a motion capture suit was also wearing undergarments and shoes similar to those from the 1930s, to ensure that that kind of, those three elements, the digital garment, the digital body, and the motion capture, all aligned to create this kind of total simulation. Another piece of work that I did while at Drexel was this high resolution imaging of garments from the 1930s. This is a Jesse Franklin Turner, American designer, and did a kind of a capture using, again, a kind of photogrammetry using digital SLR, where you can zoom in kind of and see things almost beyond the naked eye. So you can zoom in and count stitches on the garments, and also see little pins where the garments are being held together and things like that. So, you know, just showing here the kind of potential for replication and dissemination. This is the setup where we, the garment, the file itself was made up of 36 images by 18. I'm very bad at maths, but whatever that maths figure is. So each time the camera system captured 36 images, and then we rotated the table around 18 different times to create that high resolution capture. I'm just going to show you as well some projects briefly from work that we do at the London College of Fashion. So we work very much, we've got three kind of principal centers that explore these kind of areas. We've got the Digital Learning Lab, the Digital Anthropology Lab, and the Fashion Innovation Agency, all kind of looking at the future of fashion, at the future of communication, and emerging technologies. So this was a project done with the Fashion Innovation Agency and the designer Stephen Tai. It was a mixed reality using motion capture, and again, models, digital models interacting with physical models. This is another piece that was done recently with a group of students. So again, I think very similar to the technology that Alan mentioned. So AI machine learning, actually taking the skeletal capture or information from film footage, and then using 3D software to reimagine and reinterpret what that is from source imagery. Again, just showing the potential for motion capture beyond wearing the suit. And a very recent project is this one. It's called The Fabric of Reality. And it was a kind of a collaboration, again, with the Fashion Innovation Agency, fashion designers, digital disruptors, and media partners to create this immersive virtual reality environment where a series of designers presented their works within virtual reality. And here really showing, again, the potential for engagement, participation, where you could actually engage with the objects. You could go inside the body, inside these kind of like hyper speculative, hyper digital worlds. And again, kind of showing the potential of these areas for the likes of storytelling. And just moving finally, just to show a couple of examples from Fashion Week this year in the context of Fashion Week in the pandemic. So, you know, this is Helsinki Fashion Week, a designer, Patrick McDowell, who showed his collection fully imagined within 3D. So scanning models, garments, and creating these kind of hyper exuberant worlds to show the collection. But also, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about this, things around the politics of representation. This is a London-based gender fluid accessories brand, and they work very much with digital collective and disruptors, again, looking at this idea of the representation of Black, trans, and non-binary models. So creating these kind of new forms of ways of showing objects on the body, where often those bodies aren't even represented in the real industry. So creating these kind of digital replicas to kind of raise awareness of that as an issue. and I probably too potentially spoke over time, but I think now we are moving over to Alex.
We are indeed. Thank you very much, Daniel. It's really interesting to see how all those materials and that approach to it from a such a stunning point of view. Alex, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alan and Daniel. So hello, everyone. I'm Alexander Whitley. I am a choreographer and artistic director of Alexander Whitley Dance Company. I founded my company in 2014 with a particular interest in exploring the creative possibilities for dance that I saw emerging around digital technology. And a lot of the work that I've been doing with my company has involved the use of motion tracking around interactive systems, and more recently specializing in motion capture and the creation of digital dance works. So there's some images here of a few pieces we've made. So I've worked a lot around bringing digital technology to stage, some of which has involved using motion tracking technology, infrared cameras, like the Microsoft Kinect, which kind of revolutionized things for digital artists and creatives in terms of making motion tracking technology a lot more affordable and available. And then I guess the work that I've been doing around this technology has I guess opened up new areas of performance exploration. So through interactive installations that invite the public to move and experience the interactivity alongside a performance, as well as creating work for virtual reality, which ultimately has the potential to put the audience kind of within a dance experience and use digital effects to recreate their bodies in a way that enables them to interact with and relate to performers in ways that aren't possible in the real world. So I'm just going to show a brief show reel here of some of the digital projects we've done over the last few years. So this video playing now is from a piece called Celestial Motion, which I created in partnership with the Guardian VR studio. So we used, this is based on a stage production of ours called 8 Minutes. And originally the piece we made was combining 360 film and motion captured dance. We then went on to create Celestial Motion 2, which used, well, it was a multi-user experience. So there was 2 people within the experience that, and we used full body tracking in that, as I was saying, so we could recreate the user's body. This is something I've been working on more recently during the pandemic, which is part of the Digital Body Project. It's something I'll talk about a bit more, but this is an example of an augmented reality filter that we created using motion captured dance. And here's a brief example of one of the digital body films that's been created during the pandemic. And then Chaotic Body is an extension of the Digital Body Project. We just premiered this film last weekend at Rome Europa Festival. So again, it's another example of how we've been able to create work remotely using motion capture technology and explore the many different possibilities around how the body can then be revisualized and represented. So I'm going to talk a bit more quickly about the Digital Body Project. So in the background here, a few different samples of things. So I initiated this at the beginning of the pandemic, having a motion capture suit, which I actually bought from Target 3D last year. And I'd had it in mind for a long time to build a project exploring purely digital dance works. And when the lockdown hit, I grabbed my motion capture suit and took it with me and started just experimenting with recording sequences of movement and posting these things on my website under a Creative Commons license, and inviting digital artists to make use of this data in any way they wanted. And fortunately, there's been a really wonderful response from people. And you'll just see the kind of the almost limitless ways that movement can then be represented and revisualized, and I guess the different kind of characteristics that brings to the body. So this is an example. It just shows you some of the motion capture technology. So you can see Tia, one of my company's dancers there in the background, using one of these motion capture suits. And there's a few different processes. This is from the Chaotic Body film. So I worked in collaboration with a group called UL Collective. And it's just showing some of the different kind of experiments they did of how that motion captured movement could then be used either to represent a figure or to generate effects in the environment around the body. And for me, this is a really kind of fascinating possibility around motion capturing movement. Is it's not just about the representation of the body or the potential abstraction of the body, but also about I guess a changed relationship between the body and space and the virtual space. That there's a potential not only to revisualize the body and reveal different aspects of human movement, but also to, I guess, reveal or demonstrate different kinds of relationships between things, between bodies and the environment in which they're located. So yeah, again, this is just another example of how the movement was translated into the digital body. More recently, I've been working on a new VR production based on the Rite of Spring. So again, you'll see here how the original choreography translates into the, this is a perception neuron by Neuton, which is one of the manufacturers of the motion capture suits that Alan was talking about before. And we've been then taking this data and putting it into Unreal Engine, which is one of the games engine technologies that a lot of virtual reality and digital games are created in, but increasingly, I guess, different creative industries are making use of it. So it goes to show, I guess, the stages we've gone through to create that production. Finally, moving on, oh, this comes with sound. I hope you can still hear me okay as it's playing. Maybe you can't hear the sound, but I might just scroll through a little bit. This is something that we've created recently. It's a piece called Convergent Pulses, which was actually made with a group of young disabled dancers. So I'm really interested in how, obviously, this kind of technology can be used in a professional setting, but I'm equally interested in how, I guess, different, well, a wider access to different kind of communities and types of bodies, I guess, can be represented through this kind of technology. And we were able to do this using, if you scroll forward to the end, you see how this was done. So this is using a video analysis tool. It's a company called Radical that enables you to take a video and upload it on a server, and they send you a motion capture file back using artificial intelligence. So it's really amazing how the technology is moving forward and really widening access to all kinds of people to use this technology. And this was all created remotely during lockdown. So I never met those dancers in person, but I was able to collaborate with them and create this digital dance film with them. So yeah, I guess for me, it just shows the exciting potential of not only how it can, I guess, form new kinds of creative relationships, but also how new artwork can be constructed through the use of this technology. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex, and to all of our panelists, Daniel and Alan as well. Really, really fascinating hearing about all of your work. I'm just going to encourage all of our, everyone who's attending the webinar, please do use the Q&A function if you have questions yourself you would like to throw in. We've got about 15 minutes with with our fabulous team here. So do just pop them into the Q&A and we will try and get to them. I suppose I have a question, which is one of the, just as a starter for 10, just because there's none in the question box yet, rather than just me deciding I'm going to hog everything. But I have a question which is around, I often find that when we're approaching which technology we use for which projects, and whether or not that's motion capture, or whether or not that's wearable IMUs or 3D imaging systems, or whatever we're doing,